There is a great taboo apparently surrounding women and how evil they can be, how dark they can be in their thinking, or simple minded as well. It seems that all of these are concealed behind a veil, and everyone actually, the entire society pretends that everything is normal and shrugs it under the magical rug, whatever you call it in English. I think it's a rug, yes? Yes. And then, people still pretend almost childishly that once they suffer because of women, things are still going on good and nothing has to necessarily change. See, the point in this world is we've been living in this level of ignorance for quite some thousands of years. Every freaking thing that generation after generation failed to transcend or deal with it at least, they obviously made a bigger fuss out of it. Because, see, when animals are born, when animals live their life, they are fully connected, let's say, with how their body functions, how their energies function, how they are, how they should be. And, they don't have any questions against their morality. They don't have anything to question. They just function because they are united and connected with, let's say, their, what do you call it, the user manual of their physical body. But when humans, in their far broader and more complex psychological, let's say internal function, when humans become more complacent, when humans suffer from generational trauma, they simply become more and more distant from the such. And it feels like even living within your physical body needs some kind of faculty degree, at least, or at least one though. Yes, because you are born in a world where no one teaches you how your emotions function, how your mind functions, and you're just stuck living on a bench and allowing some forces within you to simply try to take control and, well, maneuver and work this physical body for you. Aren't you tired of realizing that these things, well, they will lead you to certain outcomes, but obviously they will not be that which you truly need. They will never be entirely the result you are seeking, right? Because action is what takes you somewhere. When it is done in an unconscious way, it's extremely hard to predict where you will end up, typically. Now, due to the comfort zone illusion, right? People thinking that they are in the comfort zone, they will usually do the same exact thing, living in the illusion that doing the same exact thing gives them a certain sense of stability, a certain sense of pleasure, maybe, because they do the same exact thing and they are never exposed to the risk of failure. This creates a lot of cripplings within your system. It creates a certain level of prosophonia within you, which means a hatred towards change, a hatred towards anything that is new. This creates a lot of cracks within you because life always longs for something else. When there are these contrasts within you, that life will always want something new, but you almost instantly give up on that, these cracks will become greater and greater. And the more you repress those pains, the more superficial you'll become. The more of a zombie or a robot you also become. Because in the end, you're literally not gonna feel any pain. You're gonna dumb yourself down and numb yourself down so much that you're literally like a spirit in a physical body. Well, technically, you are a spirit in a physical body, but you will act as if, well, it doesn't even matter anyways, because the conviction existing at your core is that whatever you do doesn't matter anyways. This is the greatest wound within humanity, and unfortunately everything in misery will also end up as an engine to support the misery itself. When we look at our history, the greatest problem is always going to be generational trauma. Because generational trauma is not something that happens to one specific generation. Oh no, that karmic structure will be passed on automatically to all your, younglings that you will have, all your children. But guess what? That is not also a thing, entirely the thing, because it is not called generational trauma for nothing. You are being taught in this narcissistic society that everything is individual. No, you are taught in an extremely wrong way. Everything you are taught in a sick society, if you take the opposite, you are much more likely to be closer to the truth than if you just follow the path that is given to you. Everyone, if anyone suffers in this world sufficiently, others will also perceive it at a certain level. If someone goes through sufficient hardships, it will also serve in a way as a lesson for others to perceive. And it will live, let's say, in a certain dimension of life that can be accessed by certain other people who will go through sufficient hardships that certain shells within them will break. The more you ignore yourself, the more you repress certain things. You create extra layers of physicality. These extra layers of physicality are like you're digging yourself in the ground further and further from the sun. And then you're wondering why you are no longer feeling so full of vitality, because you're running away from the sheer naturalism that you once had. When you were born as a child, you didn't have too many problems, right? Unless you were born out of some very sickly parents, very simple-minded parents, or like both parents who probably also had you inherit their awareness level at the beginning. A lot of children don't seem to care much at the beginning about so many things, but some of them, the ones whose karma is far more advanced, far broader, and who have experienced far more lifetimes and struggles throughout those lifetimes, will have in time certain things activated within them. Simple-minded people simply don't count much in here because they have a lot of things to learn. But when it comes to the majority of people, they are still simple-minded people, unfortunately. People who still need to learn how their physical body functions, how their needs function. Because in a society of misery, among the first things you are programmed to live by is that nothing regarding you matters. That anything that sounds or feels as weakness must be squashed. There must be no sign of weakness within you. For the longest time, thousands of generations on and on, women have been taught things like this. Because what is the most dangerous thing in a sick society? That is emotion. Yes, because emotion reminds you that you are actually alive. When you are a miserable piece of shit, what is your function? The core function of a miserable piece of shit is very simple to understand. They run as much away as possible from their emotions because those remind them that they exist. They lie themselves constantly that whatever they need to do, whatever they have to do, whatever needs they have, whatever necessities, anything regarding them simply doesn't matter. So they simply run away from emotion because emotions constantly will remind them that they are alive, they have those necessities, and those have to be handled, right? What is the core pillar of misery? Lack of responsibility, right? Because responsibility is the death of all misery, right? Because miserable people don't take responsibility at all. And when you're taught constantly, generation by generation, that everything that you do, everything that regards you doesn't matter, right? In the end, at a certain layer, it kind of doesn't matter. You have your life to live. You don't have to focus on what other people say. But you're constantly gonna be bullied by fuckers who will have nothing else to do than to simply splash you in their misery and force you to live by their misery as well. Every strength of yours is a weakness. Everything that represents you as uniqueness is something broken. Because they are nothing else but broken fucks. They are just people who have given up on their hope, on their innocence, on everything regarding them. And you know that the bird that is well used to growing up in captivity will think that flying is a disease, right? Everything unique about you has to be broken. Because the more it is repressed, the more you are reminded the misery that you most likely have faced in previous lifetimes. And guess what? This will lead you to actually cracking. In time, you will crack. In some lifetimes, maybe you will crack in such a wrong way that you will become a crackhead. You will become whatever monster there can be, and you will have a miserable life as well. One may need multiple lifetimes, most likely, to crack enough in order to break through some of the layers that in the greatest miseries they have faced, they have created as a response mechanism, right? Life can go way beyond this current existence that you have. It always does. Whether you believe in karma or not, that does not matter. It's exactly like the sun. You can be one of those bozos who can't live life without constantly thinking that they have something else in their pants or that they are anything else but a human. And you can deny the sun as much as you want. It will still influence you no matter what. Similarly, karma will have its influence on you whatever way you want, whatever way you think and such. Now, if we think a bit further, see, all these generational traumas have been imposed upon the next generations, always making things worse and worse. See, when women embraced, just like men, the idea of comfort, because through the evolution of our race, we created more and more comfort. We distanced ourselves from nature and the cycles that our ancestors lived by in very great ways. When we did that and we embraced comfort too easily, too fast, the problem was we forgot a lot of things regarding us. Morality simply no longer was an issue, no longer a thing, and books had to be written, laws had to be reinforced in order to remind people of their morality, right? You need to have a law nowadays to remind you that you must not kill, else there's gonna be, you're gonna be held responsible one way or another, right? So all things like that. You have symbols showing you that the bathroom is over there for women and for men in that place and this and that, all sorts of things. Everything seems to be so guided, but the biggest problem is when everything is guided like this, you can so easily slip into this misery yet again because you're already used to being miserable and comfortable with your misery from previous lifetimes due to karmic memory, let's say. You should never disregard these memories because should these memories be removed from you, you will have to go through those yet again in order to accumulate the wisdom that is needed in order to, maybe not in this life, but sometime in whatever lifetime there will be, that you have sufficient wisdom to simply bypass this misery and seek ways much faster than you used to do in previous lifetimes, whether you even did it, in order to gain, freedom from that misery, to distance yourself from miserable people. Because the only thing miserable people in your life will always look to pull you down. They are exactly like shifting sands. You'll be sitting or standing close to them, and they will simply sift you to the bottom of the worst layers that you can have, right? The worst layers of existence, right? They will bring so much misery and pain upon you. Most likely you've been through this. You're probably surrounded by such fuckers anyways. So if we think a bit about this, living around such people is never a good thing. When we think a bit about women will suffer more because of ignorance, right? Because ignorance means you're distancing yourself from emotions. Emotion is powerful for women because it reminds them that they're alive. I always told people, handle well a woman's emotions. Make sure she lives life and she feels good in her own physical body. And most of your problems are simply solved in your life, especially problems that can appear from living alongside the wrong kind of women. Yes, because if you look at many women in this world, many of them simply are cracked. Many of them are simply twisted one way or another. They will always boast with irrelevant things. They will always cheat. They will always be superficial, superfluous. They will always, lack any sort of structure. And they will simply try to find someone whom they can have a child with and then discard afterwards. Because in ignorance, no one wants to take any responsibility. Family is a huge responsibility, right? They just want to know subconsciously that they have given birth to a child. Then what comes as the next objective? Well, the next objective in misery is to perpetrate misery. And children, because they are pure, they will always be the target. Why? Because in misery, everything that is innocent must be exterminated. Everything that is different from the paths imposed by misery and self-imposed as well, as a result of programming and generational traumas, everything like that has to be imposed, and everything other than that must be exterminated in any way, shape, or form. The first attempt will be assimilation. You will be programmed to be miserable as them. You'll be initially guided, and they will make fun of it. It's the only possible way, right? They will probably guide it in cutesy ways, and they will make you embrace pain and misery as if it is the only possible way. That is how also wounded feminine functions. It invites you in its misery and makes you feel as if that is the only way you can actually live life. Then it imposes it upon you as if it is indeed the only way you can live life. And at the same time, it will reinforce it as it will be so much greater, so much better. Even if you're going through all that pain, it is so much better, so good that you are at the mercy and at the grace of that person, right? At this layer, you're already going beyond some narcissistic layers as well, right? After that it's being imposed, you are going to be obsessively requested to simply function like that. This is when a communistic society appears, right? I have tried to explain these things in the least amount of detail possible, because this is how the layers lead from a few individuals of the worst kind possible in society to the moment when they swarm, literally, the society. Because the hand that rocks the cradle decides the future of the country. If you have a lot of fucked up women, they will make fucked up children. And those fucked up children will grow up into other fucked up women who will have fucked up children, as well as absent men who will simply live in tribalism. This has been the greatest plague in human society for as long as probably we have lived, because when women forget about their feminine, when feminine grace disappears, the masculine can still live well in a way, because they get back into the masculine always gets back into its ritualistic side, into its tribalism. And tribalism means expansion, conquest, destruction, and rebuilding, right? And also control. This is why some people feel so masculine. When feminine forgets about her grace, she gets back into the drama system, as I call it, where she only lives as a seducer. And you can see that in a lot of women. They're not interested in any relationship. They're just flirting constantly. It's a contest to show themselves that they are worthy of other people's attention. Because don't forget, at the very core of misery itself, is the simple conviction that you are not worthy of anything. So these miserable people constantly have to prove themselves something, that they're good at the video games that they're playing, that they're good at flirting with other people, or stealing other people's attention in whatever shape, way, or form. They will laugh, they will do jokes about themselves, they will post fake stuff on social media in order to just see some numbers and such. These are just extremely shallow people who should never even have the chance to appear in your life, let alone exist alongside you. Because these people, they are just ruins, they are just black holes. You get them too close to you, they will simply take you down to your grave. And we know women can do that much faster because they become somewhat experts of their own emotions. Women will always be in tune with their emotions. The problem is when their emotions are denied from birth, and they end up living life as if their emotions are their own enemy, drama and misery will be their only guides. And, well, the problem is women are amplifiers. This is when your society becomes fucked up. Because if the only thing you will teach women is that they have to be dramatic, they have to suck it up and be nothing else but the misery they have been told, oh, your society is in big shit, right? Because there was that meme that said, well, women in a way are stronger than men, because it takes 6 men to lead a man to his own grave, but you only need a woman, the right fucked up woman, to take him there, right? So when we think about all this lack of emotion and apathy, Women will always find ways to bypass things because it all starts with the idea of comfort. The masculine will always seek to make the feminine as comfortable as possible because throughout the pure sides, the aspects of society that were once pure, women were not allowed in churches and politics and the such, mainly because those can become easily convoluted emotionally and the such. And it's not good for women to necessarily waste their time there. Obviously, not all women will be dealing with such toxic environments pretty well. But the problem is when women become too accepting of their comfort zone, that becomes the greatest poison in a society. Because once that has happened, well, they will simply crave their comfort zone. What do you see in modern women nowadays? Women or humans who don't want to do shit. They just want to live life and for whatever reason just be served and be given everything and put everything at their feet, right? They don't want to work anything, they don't want to do anything. All they want is just land a man, get a child, most likely discard the man, and get themselves a cat and just live life like that, the most retarded lifestyle possible. But hey, women have to also wake up sooner or later and realize that their ignorance has crumbled all societies till now. Because once you have ignorant women, well, your society is never far away from failure, from crashing down. Because once you give birth constantly to miserable children and you're going to teach them to be more miserable than yourself, well, everything will become even more shallow. Everything will be more pain oriented. And then you're wondering why you have Zionists around telling you that, well, acting as if everyone else who is not like them has to be killed, else their God will not love them. Then you're wondering why you have so many despots creating empires just out of creating misery upon others, right? And then you think why you have so many people supporting, child abuse and such. Even social media are guilty about that because they all have their dark sides as well. They all support, slavery of certain models, right? The so-called good-looking people who end up in sex jobs and such, right? And then, they appear on darker such social media and, they do porn videos and such, right? Misery will always seek to perpetrate itself because it is the worst layer of your existence. It is the most survival related aspect of yourself. That is why in misery, everything that you lose feels that you're losing a bit of yourself. Because misery can only exist when you are attached to everything around you. When something lives around you for enough time, it gets impregnated with your energy and it feels as if it is part of your environment, right, of your body. And you feel as if the environment you're living in is part of your body. So if you live that part, it feels like a part of you is dying, right? This is how misery takes control of you so easily. And that is why you end up craving comfort so much. Mentally and psychologically, it is the same exact thing. It is the same exact trick. You focus so much on the same exact thoughts. They become to you as if they are your children. You'll perceive those thoughts equally. The moment they start crumbling because they're no longer serving you, that is why it feels as if you are kind of dying away, as if you are withering, because they may have had some sort of, they may have been some sort of stability, but the problem is now they no longer are. One has to realize no amount of meaning will or should make sense much to you to such extent that you become obsessed with it. The moment you become obsessed with your misery, you are simply finished. Your life simply has ceded because you will simply open yourself up to all the karmic aspects of the past. All the traumas of the past will open themselves up to you. The moment you slip back into unconsciousness, everything that was behind you, before you, within the unconscious layers of your existence, it will creep up back upon you. Your level of awareness is your only defense against the sufferings of the past. They will simply crawl back and pull you into doing the same cycles again and again because maybe you haven't experienced those much, but a psychopath who ends up killing or someone who ends up killing for the first time, They haven't done it before, but the pains needed for that exist. And also being connected with other so many variables, it will easily lead them there. That is why you will experience certain moments in your life when you simply become such a spectator in your life. You will be like you have no control over your physical body. You will probably do some of the most horrible things. You're gonna be horrified within you that you're actually doing those. It's like you're watching cinema through your fucking eyes, right? You're actually watching a movie through your eyes, and you're just a spectator who no longer has control over your body. You're gonna speak the worst things or do the worst things without having any control, probably for the moment not even having any kind of remorse. These are karmic moments that will happen. Sooner or later they can happen to people. So if you're wondering why people end up so horrible, it's all because you're not just suffering your own pains, you're suffering the pains of all your ancestors as well. The more ignorant you become, the more open you become to those as well. They will creep back upon you just like your shadows. You will not be able to surpass those. You will only be able to transcend those by being conscious, by living through conscious layers of your existence, by being conscious of your actions, by taking responsibility and doing everything possible in order to stay that. You will never be 100% aware in life. I assure you of that. Just being 5 minutes conscious can actually tire you far more than your stupid 8 or 10 hour job. I assure you of that. Especially at the beginning, you will definitely feel like you want to slip back into your stupid job because it is much more comfortable than doing something conscious for like 5 minutes. Yes, try to be conscious of your breath for like 10 fucking minutes. I assure you, you will want by half that time, you will prefer to suffer or keep suffering into your job or is the same stupid people around you rather than just doing that, right? It will feel so excruciating at the beginning. But everything must have a beginning, yes? And well, hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated. Take care, enjoy life. And this being said, Fearing John Board signing out.